I'm reading from my chapter in my book, It's Not a Boy. The chapter's called Across the Water. And in the first part, you might remember that I couldn't cross our drain, our deadly, murky, deep drain, and had to find a way to get home. And in this part, we're going on holiday across the water. And the thing with going across the water is you don't know what's on the other side. In our family, across the water meant that somebody had died and gone across. So there was always something very frightening about going across. I thought our school would never end and we wouldn't ever get to go on holiday. But it did end, of course, and at last it was over, and Miss McBride and Mr. Gray could go away and get married and then have their holiday honeymoon in Scotland. But our family was still waiting for our holiday. Mum had to write to Uncle Teddy first and ask how to get there. She gave the letter to Posty, and it came back quite quickly with the instructions. But we still weren't ready because Mum had to do a lot of sewing. She had to sew swimming suits, which we didn't really need because we couldn't swim, but you couldn't go on holiday without a swimsuit. And next she had to make us sundresses, which we loved and hoped that the sun would shine. At least Dad didn't have to have anything new. He would wear what he always wore when he went out or visiting the market. He wore his cavalry twills and his sports jacket. It wasn't as if it was a wedding or a funeral where he wore a dark suit. And Mum said that wouldn't be suitable for our holiday. Dad wasn't bothered about clothes, but he was bothered about his animals. And he spent ages trying to get everybody familiar with what they had to do to look after the creatures when he wasn't there. He might as well have been wearing his funeral suit. He looked so sad. But at last our waiting was over, and we all crowded into our little black car. Our Katie, Gwendy and me went in the back, and Mum sat in the front with Dad. We went up our lane and turned west at our lane end, and through Sankstead and on to Hull Docks. I had never been there before. We usually went to Hull on a bus when Mum went to do some shopping and when I went to the hospital. This time we had to go and catch a ferry. And of course, like in Miss McBride's poem, she would now be Mrs. Gray, we had a boatman. Dad had to drive our car onto the paddle steamer, and then we followed, walking over a wet wooden ramp. We were going across the river Humber. I was so excited that I didn't mind if our holiday never ended and we never came back. But our Gwendy wasn't excited. She felt sick because we were swaying over the heaving Humber water and crossing the great swelling waves to New Holland in Lincolnshire. Mum said we had to say Lincolnshire, but we never did, and neither did Dad. We said Lincolnshire. Soon we were on the other side of the water, but we were lost. Nobody in our family had ever been across the Humber like this, and we had to get Uncle Teddy's letter out to see what to do next. It said that we had to travel right down south to King's Lynn, so that's what we did. Dad set our car facing the sun, and he drove steadily due south. Our Katie and me were hungry and wanted Dad to stop so we could get our packed lunch out of the boot. But Gwendy wasn't hungry. "I'm going to be sick," she shouted, and Dad screeched to a halt so Gwendy could get out and be sick on the roadside with Mam holding her forehead like she always did. Then we got going again, with Dad driving into a summer sun as fast as he could. He had his trilby hat on, and he pulled the brim down to shade the sunlight from his eyes. He clenched his pipe stem with his teeth, and I could see he was tense. He didn't like driving out of Yorkshire. It was not exciting to him at all. "East, west, home's best," he said through gritted teeth. I was starving by now and kept begging him to stop so we could eat. But he drove on, and eventually we came to King's Lynn. We swooped under a great railway bridge and onto a place that was a bit like Hull with docks and shops. Dad got tenser and tenser, and his pipe stem would surely break with the biting he was doing. And to make things worse, there was suddenly loads of traffic. "After King's Lynn, you head southeast," said the letter. Dad swung our car round, and we headed away from the sun. On and on we went through little villages and winding roads until at last Dad agreed to stop so we could eat our mashed boiled egg sammies. "They're called sandwiches," said Mam again. But we never said sandwiches. We always said sammies. We always had boiled egg sandwiches as well, from our hens, which were good layers. They were a bit dry and boring, but we ate them because we hadn't had anything to eat since breakfast. Even Gwendy had one, and then she started to look a bit better. After we'd eaten every last crumb of our bread and every last yellow and white lump of our egg, we set off again. Dad drove on and on. Us kids were looking out for a signpost that said Odie, because that's where we were going. We were going to Odie in Norfolk. But no signpost said that village. Mam got her letter out again and again, and Uncle Teddy had just written that Odie was straight on and that you couldn't miss it. But we did miss it, and we had to turn round and head back again east. "I want to be sick again," shouted our Gwendy, and Mam got out with her and held her forehead again. Gwendy got back in, looking as white as a sheet, and left her egg lumps on the side of the road. Then Mam had a good idea. She took Uncle Teddy's letter and got out of our car when we next saw a house, and she knocked on the cottage door and showed the people there our letter. Yes, they knew Odie. It was just down there. Turn left. No, there are no signposts. Everybody knows where it is. And if they don't need to go there. Well, we were going there. But it didn't matter now that we'd missed it so many times, because we were all so glad that in no time at all we were knocking on Auntie Gladys's door. And when they opened it, there were smiles and everybody was cheerful, even my tired Dad. Their kitchen light shone out into the dark night, and the smell of a big stew cooking made our mouths water. Our holiday across the water had begun.